Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we discuss my thoughts on Season 2, Episode 10 of the Orville, entitled Blood of Patriots. And I gotta get it out of the way right away and say, after Identity Parts 1 and 2, almost anything that followed that two-parter was going to be a little bit deflated. Was going to be a little bit feeling like a step back and or backpedaling, to borrow from what Gordon tells his friend he is doing at the end of the episode. And that's very much kind of how I was left feeling watching this episode. It was much more in line with what we got the first half of the season. Much more character-based drama and some wonky humor in places, which has always been the cry and shame for me with this show. The humor doesn't always land, and it definitely didn't land for the most part. Each little, subsequent jab or jive or whatever you want to call it that they put out there, the little attempts at humor in this episode. It was much more about the drama, and the intriguing thing for me is it was completely and utterly unlike anything that I had conceived in my head as to what we might see. Especially looking at the preview for this episode following the previous, I had thought it was going to be much more of a right down to the wire, right down to the 11th hour, grudge match between the Krill and the Union as represented by Ed and all of our main cast, where they were trying to brokerage, extending the olive branch and brokerage peace. And I figured it was going to get hot and heavy and tensions would mount, and we would think that war was an inevitability, that it was going to continue from this point. And I never would have guessed that we would find a shuttle making a beeline for the Orville containing a human, and as we find out, I forget what they called it, but a humanoid, very human in appearance, but non-human, alien, and with blood that could create a chemical reaction that leads to an explosion, and all this stuff. I couldn't have predicted any of that. None of what I assumed was going to happen actually happened. In fact, when we saw the shuttle being fired upon, I immediately called back to Star Trek The Next Generation. I think it was the episode entitled Defector. If that's the incorrect title, I will have it down on the bottom here. But where a Romulan is trying to make a beeline for the Federation, and it turns out it was all an elaborate ruse, a test to see if he would be loyal to his own kind, and talks of extradition and everything like that to get him back to the Romulan side. It was all in jeopardy, the relations between the Federation and the Romulans. And I thought that was going to be kind of how it was going. I thought it was going to be a Krill defector on board the shuttle. Then when we find it's two presumably humans, I was like, oh, okay. This took a beeline from that line of thought while I'm watching it. And then as we get into the discussion about, supposedly this guy Oren, who Gordon realizes is his longtime friend from long ago, who saved his very life and everything like that, but they're talking about how he has sabotaged and destroyed, I think they said 4 Krill ships, 4 separate events where he destroyed wholly, Krill vessels. I'm thinking, oh, well, we got the girl here who's silent, who's supposed to be his daughter. Maybe she is, maybe she isn't. Maybe there's some sort of cybernetics, maybe it's eugenics or something like that, where she's stronger than she appears. The fact that she is silent the whole time, I'm like, oh, it's River Tam. So she's a lethal weapon on 2 feet. And he sends her over to the Krill ships, and she destroys, wreaks havoc, destroys it all. Nope. It wasn't that either. And so I did like the mystery of it. I felt like it was plodding along a little bit, and it was just kind of like, well, let's get to it already. Whatever it is. We don't really need Tala finding him, snooping around in the engineering section, all this kind of stuff. It was just sort of plodding it along and spreading it out like, oh, so much peanut butter on bread. And I just wanted them to get to the jelly already. So when finally all of that stuff is revealed, that, oh yes, he is the one who was wreaking havoc, and how he was going about it with the blood of this, you know, woman who's pretending to be his daughter and everything like that. She can actually speak, goes to like try to attack Tom with a knife, regrets it, but she almost blows up the ship in defending herself, you know, as a result of the chemical equation of her blood and whatever. Again, it just went vroom, right over my head. I couldn't have called any of it. And it wasn't about until Gordon decides to help Orin steal the shuttle, and we find out it's all an act and everything like that, that the intensity finally ramped up, and I was finally on the edge of my seat, and I was finally like into it. Everything up to that point, it was just kind of like I was watching passively, and I'm like, when is this going to pick up? When is it going to become engrossing, captivating? I'm like, yes, I am engaged with the mystery. I'm like, what's going on exactly? I'm speculating all throughout. But it didn't have me by the lapels until we find out, you know, Gordon's seemingly willing to help him, and they steal the shuttle, but then we find out, oh, it was a ruse to find out what his plan actually is, how he's going to go about this. And everything from that point on to the absolute, you know, final scene of the episode where Ed and Gordon make amends and have those kind words between them of friendship and that bond, the strengthening of that. I mean, everything from that point on was spectacular. It did open, I have to say, pretty spectacularly, with Yaphet getting the Star Award, you know, for his heroism and everything, for the role he had played in, you know, saving the ship effectively against the Kalons. I loved and adored that. I was like, well, hell yes. It's kind of the antithesis of, you know, Chewbacca in Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, not getting the same amulet, the award that Luke and Han subsequently do. It's like nice. It's nice seeing an alien species that gets an accommodation for heroism, for just, you know, performing above his duty in a sense, and I loved it. At first I thought Ed was like officiating a marriage we didn't see coming, but then when he said, "Oh, here's the, you know, Sapphire Star Award," or whatever it is, I'm like, well, hell yes, 2 thumbs up. All right, you know. And so it was an exemplary opening. The whole time I'm wondering, who is this guy Orin? Who is the actor? Because I recognized his face and I couldn't for the life of me place where I knew him from. It took Googling after the episode to realize he's Mackenzie Astin, Sean Astin's brother, and the son, one of the sons of, you know, John Astin and Patty Duke, 2 all-time classic actors, The Addams Family, The Patty Duke Show, and things of that sort. And, you know, people I've long time admired since watching reruns of their respective shows on Nick at Night back when I was in middle school. Very much, it was something that informed my life the way it did for my parents when they were my age. And so it blew my mind. Like, I don't think I've seen Mackenzie Astin, who played Orin, since The Facts of Life back in the 80s or something. Maybe I've seen him in other things like NCIS or something, which I think he was listed, credited as appearing in. Maybe once somewhere along the way, but like I really was struggling to figure out where I knew his face from. And there it is. You know, somebody who goes back to my childhood in a sense, and just being like, his performance in the episode was fantastic, was spectacular. I expected from the get-go that he wasn't necessarily in his right mind. I like the summarization of Gordon in the end, who says, you know, my friend died a long time ago in that Krill encampment, prison camp, you know, and whoever this guy was, it wasn't the same guy I knew, and whatever like that. But his performance was just spot on, was stellar. And I loved the bounding back and forth between he and Scott Grimes as Gordon. It was like, here are 2 actors I've grown up with in a sense. Like, I really haven't seen a lot of their careers, but I remember them from childhood. I remember seeing them early on in life, and then they crop up in the Orville and bounding off each other. Like, at first I thought they were going to be brothers, because they kind of have a little bit of a similar look, very vague though it may be. I was like, oh, he, you know, when Gordon says Orin, I was like, oh, it's his brother, or, you know, or something. And I was thinking maybe like, oh, his brother was brainwashed, or this, that, and the other thing. It was going to be that much more of a you know, dramatic interpersonal interconnectivity between them. But just the fact that they were friends and just how they bounded off each other, it was really great, you know, those performances. And, you know, having Ed, having Seth MacFarlane in this position where he's between a rock and a hard place, and you also got a dump truck pushing the rock up against that hard place, because he's talking to Ted Danson, the Admiral. He's trying to figure out how they're going to brokerage peace, and all of a sudden it's like, well, extradition, send him back. If he's guilty, figure it out, and trying to, you know, grasp at straws to come up with an answer, a definitive answer. Is he or isn't he? Yes, it was interesting, but it wasn't like flying by the seat of my pants exciting the way Identity Parts 1 and 2 were. But still, it's not the worst episode I've ever seen. I don't really have much to gripe about it, other than to say that it was a little slow moving, a little plodding along, and I just wanted it to get to its crescendo faster than it actually did. And when it finally did, you know, the building up to it, it was like, boom, I'm suddenly involved, I'm engrossed, and I was on the edge of my seat to see how it was going to play out. And I also have to add, I love the fact that I noted in the opening credits the name John Fleck, who goes back to my second all-time favorite Star Trek series, Star Trek Enterprise. He was Silic, the main Suliban that the you know, NX-01 Enterprise, Captain Archer and everything constantly had run-ins with. And I recognized that he was sort of the main ambassadorial Krill. I could tell by his voice, you know, and I always loved his performances as Silic in Star Trek Enterprise. He was fantastic as this Krill, taking no crap, you know, getting right up in the face of Ed. Look, we want him back, otherwise it's war, and that's it. Not even being willing to be begrudging about you know, any considerations otherwise for peace. We want him back, and I guess you know, his own suicide was enough to sate them. I hope they had their scanners blasting so they could, you know, figure out that he offed himself and on his way to trying to go, you know, destroy their Krill vessel or whatever, and that sated them, and that's why we had that nice final scene between Ed and the three Krill signing that treaty, you know, or at least that preemptive treaty to the treaty proper that they're going to be working toward, is the impression I got on it. But you know, I mean, again, not the worst episode I've ever seen, but definitely a little bit more deflated after how engrossing and exciting and compelling the Identity two-parter was. And I can only but wait to see where we go from here for the rest of the season. And, you know, it was enjoyable for what it was, but they could have condensed it a little bit, or maybe done something in the editing or the writing to have it move a little quicker along. And so yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 10 of season 2 of the Orville, Blood of Patriots. If you've seen it as well, love it or hate it, anything goes in the comments below. Just be respectable, sharing your own opinion, be respectful of others. It's all I ask. And if you enjoyed this video and would like to consider supporting my channel, please have a look at my PayPal support contribution link in the description, as well as the comments below, which will afford you opportunities very much akin to Patreon, where you could send me a monthly contribution, a one-time only kind of thing, send me a personal message alongside a contribution requesting topics I may discuss in the future, ask for shout-outs, make recommendations of things I may check out, and eventually shout you out down the line if I end up discussing. And anything you saw fit to send my way would be 2 thumbs up for me and secure my longevity on YouTube for the foreseeable future, and it would be very much appreciated. So otherwise, until the next one, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.